If he has no excuse, neither do you. And the truth is either terrifying or liberating. Because most people spend their lives negotiating with their potential. They make deals with fear, agreements with comfort, contracts with limitation. I'll start when I feel ready. I'll change when life becomes easier. I'll try after the timing improves. And slowly, the excuse becomes an identity. The dangerous thing about excuses is not that they sound weak. It is that many of them sound reasonable. You were hurt. You were rejected. You grew up without support. You failed before. You are tired. You are afraid. Those things are real. But then, once in a while, you hear a story so powerful that every excuse inside your mind suddenly goes silent. This is one of those stories. Because the man you are about to hear about was born without arms, without legs, without certainty, without a roadmap, without the advantages most people depend on. And yet, he built a life bigger than millions of people with every physical advantage imaginable. Welcome back to Monk Mode. If this message reaches you at the right moment, drop LIMITLESS in the comments, subscribe. Share this with someone who has forgotten how powerful they really are. Because this is not just a story, this is a mirror. Nick Vujicic was born in Melbourne, Australia in 1982 with a condition called tetra-amelia syndrome. No arms, no legs, only a small foot with 2 toes. Imagine the silence inside that hospital room. His father walked out and cried in the hallway. His mother could not hold him for months, not because they did not love him, because they did, but because they were terrified. Terrified of what kind of life he would have, terrified of the cruelty of the world, terrified of the suffering waiting for him. And honestly, most people would understand that fear because the world does not know how to react to people who are different. Children stared at him. Some laughed, some avoided him. Others treated him like he was broken before they ever knew his name. That kind of loneliness changes people. Nick grew up asking the same question millions silently ask every day. Why me? Why? Would life begin this way? Why would suffering arrive before he even understood what life was? And eventually, that pain became unbearable. At 10 years old, Nick tried to drown himself in a bathtub. 10 years old. Think about that. Most children at 10 are worried about games and cartoons. Nick had already concluded that life might not be worth living. That is how powerful hopelessness can become when it goes unanswered. And maybe some people listening understand that feeling more than they admit. Not necessarily the exact same pain, but the feeling of believing you are behind, different, unwanted, broken, not enough. That quiet battle inside your own mind. But this is where the story changes. Because Nick survived, and survival alone was not the miracle. The miracle was what happened after. Somewhere inside him, something refused to surrender. Not confidence, not certainty, not motivation, just a tiny decision. A decision to keep going one more day. And sometimes that is all transformation begins with. Not a massive breakthrough, not a motivational speech, not a perfect plan, just refusing to quit. Nick slowly began adapting to life. He learned how to type using his toes, how to brush his teeth, how to swim, how to move independently. Every tiny action became a victory, things most people complain about. Nick had to reinvent from scratch. And here is the uncomfortable truth. Many people with fully functioning bodies live smaller lives than a man born without limbs. Not because they lack ability, because they surrendered mentally. That is why monk mode matters. Because monk mode is not about perfection. It is about responsibility. It is the moment you stop asking, why is life unfair? And start asking, what can I still do? Nick focused on what remained instead of what was missing. That mindset changed everything because energy grows where attention goes. If you focus only on what you lost, your world shrinks. If you focus on what is still possible, your world expands. And eventually, Nick discovered something even more powerful than survival: purpose. At 17 years old, Nick stood in front of a small group at church and spoke publicly for the first time. He was terrified. No script, no example, no roadmap how a man without arms or legs was supposed to inspire people, but he spoke anyway. And something incredible happened, people cried. Not because they pitied him, because they saw strength, real strength, the kind built through suffering, the kind most people never develop because they spend their lives avoiding discomfort. Nick realized his pain had meaning, and the moment pain gains meaning, it becomes power. That is one of the deepest truths in life. Your struggle can either destroy you or introduce you to your purpose. And from that point forward, Nick dedicated his life to helping others see possibility again. Not through fantasy, not through fake positivity, but through lived example, because nobody can argue with someone who has conquered suffering firsthand. Over the years, Nick Vujicic went from speaking to small group to speaking to millions. Schools, stadiums, prisons, businesses, entire nations, more than 70 countries, over 1 billion people reached. He became one of the most recognized motivational speakers on earth. But look carefully at why people listen to him. It is not because he is perfect. It is because he removed the possibility of excuses. When a man without arms and legs learns to swim, what excuse remains? When a man born with overwhelming limitation builds confidence, what excuse remains? When someone rejected by society creates purpose, family, impact, and joy, what excuse remains? That question is uncomfortable. Because excuses protect the ego. Excuses allow us to delay action without feeling fully responsible. But every excuse has a hidden cost. It steals your future slowly, one delayed decision at a time, one avoided challenge at a time, one wasted year at a time, and suddenly life is gone. That is why this story matters so much. Not because you are supposed to compare suffering, but because you are supposed to remember your power. Nick did not wait for ideal conditions. He acted while uncomfortable, while uncertain, while afraid. That is the secret most people miss. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is movement despite fear. Most people think their biggest enemy is lack of money, lack of opportunity, lack of support. Sometimes those things matter, but often the real enemy is learned helplessness. The belief that your circumstances have total control over your identity. And once someone believes that, they stop trying. That is the true danger of excuses. Excuses feel safe in the short term, but they slowly destroy self-respect. Every time you betray your own potential, something inside you weakens. You know it, you feel it. That quiet disappointment after wasting another day, another week, another year. But discipline rebuilds that relationship with yourself. Every promise kept strengthens identity. Wake up early, confidence grows. Train when you do not feel like it, confidence grows. Study when distracted, confidence grows. Face fear directly, confidence grows. This is why disciplined people move differently, because they trust themselves. And Nick Vujicic became powerful because he refused to abandon himself mentally, even after rejection, even after bullying, even after despair. That is strength. Not loudness, not ego, not pretending to never feel pain. True strength is continuing anyway. So now the question becomes personal. What excuse have you been protecting? Really, think about it. Maybe you blame your past, your anxiety, your environment, your failures, your age, your appearance, your lack of confidence. And again, those struggles are real. But are they becoming permanent identities? Because there is a massive difference between acknowledging pain and building a home inside it. Nick Vujicic had every socially acceptable reason to quit, and he used none of them. That does not mean your life will suddenly become easy. It means you are more capable than you think. Most people never discover their true strength because they stop too early. They quit during discomfort. They retreat during uncertainty. They surrender before transformation arrives. But transformation always requires tension. Muscles grow through resistance. Character grows through resistance. Purpose grows through resistance. And maybe the thing destroying your peace is not difficulty. Maybe it is avoidance, because deep down, you already know what needs to change. You know the distractions, you know the habits, you know the excuses. The question is whether you are finally ready to release them. Nick Vujicic once sat in a bathtub at 10 years old, believing life had no future for him. Years later, he stood in front of the world and gave hope to millions. That is the power of refusing to surrender. Not instantly, not perfectly, but consistently. One decision at a time, so hear this clearly. Your limitations are not always your choice, but your response is. And the moment you reclaim responsibility, your life begins to change, not because circumstances magically disappear, but because you finally take the pen back. No more waiting, no more blaming, no more negotiating with your potential. The world does not need another person full of excuses. It needs people willing to rise despite them. Drop limitless in the comments if this message reached you, and tell me honestly, what excuse are you releasing today? Not hiding, not suppressing, releasing. This is monk mode, and you have no excuse that he did not have first.